Hey, salam, does it? Okay, guys, welcome to accidentalmuslims.com podcast and also videocast. And this evening we have Ali Khan and Afzal Dalwai from Advi. Welcome, guys, and it's a pleasure to have you join the community, especially the accidentalmuslims.com community.
So
I think you're on mute, Afzal.
Okay, that's better. Hi,
Yeah.
it's good to be here today.
Cool, man. So yeah, let's get straight into it. It's the first time I'm actually interviewing on Zoom and also interviewing two people. So yeah, so bear with me. So let's go into it. So Ali, I'm gonna ask you first. Tell us, who is Ali Khan? Tell us about Ali Khan.
So yeah, I mean, wow. So I think I've always been a passionate technical techie guy. That wanted to develop great software and great kind of online tech type stuff. Since a teenager. That's kind of and where it started was with games, right? So whenever people tell you games are bad, I will actually disagree. So because I was crazy for games, but I always wanted to make games. And I think that's where my journey started, I had a normal kind of upbringing in shops, obviously playing the games in the shops. My father always had shops, and we spent a stint in Paul as well, so kind of a bit of a different edge there, to my background. And I think it started there. I started with games and always wanted to build games. And at some point also wanted to kind of have my own business as well. So I think as a person, always been like a person that scratched into the gist of the guts of any techie thing and gadget, and that's kind of where it started. Yeah, always been like that.
So who was Ali in school? I mean, how are you in school? Were you like this nerdy guy and liking games?
I think school for me was like it was. I wasn't actually nerdy, but school wasn't difficult. I must say. I think university was a bit of a shock. I failed everything in first year because I thought it was going to be as easy. But obviously, coming from from apartheid type of structure schools, and that's an excuse. But I mean, I never believe in making excuses. But coming from that kind of environment where it was easy to get a lot of marks in my class, and then going to like a UCT, for instance, was a real shock. I mean, I failed first year. I failed comp science. I failed maths. It was like, wow, I'm failing stuff here. So I think, I mean, I think it was school I took for granted. I didn't really work hard, and it was quite easy. But I think coming to the real world, started realizing there's a bigger picture. Yeah. So.
Yeah, so Ali, will come back to you. Afzal, tell us about your schooling.
So I mean, I'm very much a Rylands boykie. I went to the local school around the corner here for my primary school, for my preschool as well. And I've met a few guys that I'm still friends with from that Habibi preschool. I then ended up going to Livingston High School in Claremont. It was like a family tradition. My sister went there, my cousins went there. And my story is slightly different. I mean, Ali only ended up failing stuff at university. I failed stuff at high school already. I remember my maths teacher coming to me in grade 12 and telling me, my boy, if you don't pull up your socks, I'm going to have to drop you from high grade maths to standard grade. And I mean, I was always somebody that was breaking my radio control cars and trying to figure out ways in which I could re-engineer things. So engineering was always my true calling. The one thing about engineering, though, is that you do need maths high grade. So I think when that maths teacher came to me and said, I might be taking your dream away from you, it was an absolute wake-up call. And I mean, I followed a similar path to Ali. Went to UCT, started with ComSci, somewhere along the way decided maybe comp sci isn't my true calling, and then decided to do psychology. And then I got bored of psychology and ended up doing comp sci major as well. But I've always had a passion for breaking things down, figuring out ways to do it more effectively and more efficiently. And I think programming definitely lends itself to that. It's how we can use computers to make things better, how we can use technology to not only influence our lives, but make our lives a little bit easier. And I mean, there's so many trends coming out there in terms of how we use things like AI and all of these things. I mean, those are all things that interest me. And I think my interest has always been piqued. I look back at a blue radio-controlled car, which I broke up completely for as I commonly refer to it, its spare parts, the motor in it, the ability for me to control something with a wire, and that's basically where I started in terms of software.
So in school, did you always? I'm talking to Afzal. Did you always know that you're going to be in IT and do comp science and become a data analyst now at the moment? Do you always have that ambition? Or?
So, I mean, if I look back, I mean, traditionally in the Indian household, and maybe it's part of apartheid, you were either going to become a doctor or you potentially were going to become something else, like potentially a lawyer or potentially a teacher. For something inside of me, I always wanted to become a scientist. There was always something about conducting an experiment and trying to figure something out. And I think when I got to maybe like grade 12, because I used to mess around with Commodore 64s and I had a 386 and I had a 486 computer, I just ended up having a passion for figuring out things using computers. And that, I think, is where I ended up in computer science. But as I said, I mean, once I got to university, you realize that there's a lot more than comp sci out there. And then you do meander a bit. But I think in the last 10, 15 years, it's become quite clear that one of my strengths is definitely my analytical thinking and my ability to decompose problems. And sometimes it's good to play to your strengths.
You, Ali, in school?
So I knew in grade 9 already it's going to be a BSc in comp science at UCT, by the way. So it wasn't going to be anywhere else. Although I had no idea how I'm going to get there, because I was actually Afrikaans first language. And I had to go write the English entrance exam actually to get into UCT. So because I went to school in Paul, right? So, but I always knew. So in standard 7 in the olden days, standard 7, so I had to, I already decided, look, it's going to be comp science at UCT, nowhere else.
Yeah. And so look, I know, Afzal, you have a career in the corporate environment, data analyst. And Ali, so what happened after your degree? What happened then? Did
so after university, 94, I graduated. I was actually, I did a lot of stuff at university. I sold computer parts. I sold computers. I did a whole lot of stuff. And actually, when I finished university, I actually planned to be unemployed for 6 months. Right? So I thought I'm not going to get a job. So I was kind of plan B as well, because this is my nature. Working in a shop, you always have a plan B. I watched my late father, and basically, I got a job in the first week after graduation. So I kind of worked at a big corporate, Transnet. They just hired like 20 graduates. So I was easy picking. And I took the job. They assumed we knew nothing. So they sent us on a whole lot of courses, which was okay. But I guess it was a bit laborious because it wasn't really problem solving. But I think, so after university, it was into the corporate world at Transnet, and then a stint at Mutual as well. So at Mutual and then at Vodacom. And those environments essentially confirmed for me that, I'm not a corporate animal. I'm too impatient, so I'm, so I really, but I had a good stint in the corporate environment where I had a lot of contacts. So I made a lot of contacts, and that was very beneficial for me later on,
And
but I spent about 5 years in corporate,
Okay, so 5 years in corporate, and then you started something. And
so then, and I think I always tell this formula to other people that's in the space. So I did a lot of like side jobs while I was at like the likes of Mutual, at side programming at night and so on. At one point, and I lived in Pelican Park. My parents lived in Pelican Park. So at one point, I had like 3 servers in my bedroom and just running stuff off the, you know, the room was very hot in summer, but anyway, so I did a lot of side jobs, and then from there, I transitioned into doing it full time. So I was about 26. I was about 26, and then yeah, I kind of ventured out full time. Still operating from home for about 6 months, and then I took the leap to like offers and so on.
So what was the business about?
So the business developed web solutions and websites.
Okay.
So back in the day, in '98, you know, there wasn't a lot of companies around that did that kind of stuff. So we did websites. So it was easy because it was only HTML. It wasn't really difficult stuff. But I mean, I was focused more on the web systems, so database systems on the web. So doing that for corporates was really cool because there wasn't a lot of other people that could do it. And so it was really the pioneering days of online systems, etc.
Cool, man. So, Afzal, do you have any mentors? Especially you in this corporate environment, senior data analyst. Do you have any like mentors or people you look up to?
There's definitely a lot of people that I've met along my journey thus far. Individuals that stand out not only because of what they've achieved, but also because of the way in which they've gone about doing it. And then there's also individuals that, you know, they play a helping hand in your career. Most of them tend to not willingly hold up a mirror to you and help you identify where there are areas that you need to grow in. But those that you do find, I mean, those are the ones that you hold on to. So I think mentorship is definitely important, and it's something that I myself take on. So I've been very fortunate in my career from starting out in the consulting space after graduating, spending 7 years at a global consulting company, subsequently moving into the corporate environment and being able to look at it and realize that, you know, the cultures are substantially different. The things that motivate individuals are quite different in those two spaces. And then also learning to adapt. And I think it was at that point when mentorship became quite important to me because I'm a very impatient individual. I think once I'm able to see what the solution is going to be, then it's just all systems go. And you've got to have somebody that's there with you along the journey to just, you know, help you figure out that, you know, you can achieve it, what you want to achieve, but there might be a different way to do it. And I think mentorship is definitely an important part of that.
So you spent quite some time in the corporate environment, corporate industry. How do you see yourself? Do you see yourself staying in corporate? Do you love corporate? Or, where do you see Afzal Dalwai in the next 5 years?
So, I mean, you can look at it in two ways, right? I think one of the advantages, depending on the nature of the corporate that you're working in. I mean, COVID-19 has definitely demonstrated that, you know, things are very uncertain right now, and I think working for a large corporate, there is some sense of security. One might argue that, you know, that sense of security is misplaced, but be that as it may. If I look forward, I mean, into the future, one never really knows what's going to happen. But if you look at the type of role that I would want to undertake, there's definitely a portion of me that wants to continue to play a role in the corporate space, whether that be as a consultant or something along those lines. But a larger portion of me definitely wants to be more in, for the lack of a better word, more in control of what I'm doing in terms of my time, in terms of where I place my effort. And our current venture that we're pursuing is definitely something that allows me to do that.
Yeah.
So I do feel that there'll be a blend between the two going forward.
So let's talk about, before we talk about maybe your current venture, Adwy. So Ali, so now you started this business, this web solution business. Did you sell it or did you move on? Or?
So yeah, but you know, like at 25, 26, started like an IT company, an internet solutions company, developing software. And I can remember, you know, some of my first few proposals actually won it over, you know, against like big companies. And I was like, okay, cool, you know, now it's like real work. And you know, I think it was an amazing experience to go through all the, let's say, cycles of a business. So it was a big privilege, and So I mean, like getting large pieces of work from the likes of a Mutual and Vodacom. And so I never even really knew about BEE or any of that stuff. I never tended for anything. The work just, it was just there. And I think, you know, I grew the business, we grew the business very nicely. I mean, we hired a lot of guys from our community. Some of their first jobs, you know, was with our company. They learned, and it was amazing. I think for me, I miss those kind of interactions a lot, because what you actually do is you give something back in a different way. So I mean, from the last 20 years, probably we managed probably to skill like 50, 60, maybe even more people. I can't even count anymore. But yeah, so I think the journey started there, my entrepreneurial journey at about 25. And, you know, we ran the business, and obviously had different turns and twists. You know, partners left, you know, other partners joined, we merged the company, but we managed to grow the business quite substantially to about 60 people, 70 people by 2011. And also morph the business into other areas of IT, not only web, you know, into large enterprise systems. A lot of good customers like City of Cape Town and so on, we had on our books for many years, and those guys supported us. So, and I managed to exit the business quite on a good footing, alhamdulillah, in about 20, let's say 2016, yeah, after all the, you know, like agreements with the acquirers lapsed, etc. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of, you know, like a long part or big chunk of my life spent, you know, because I always say that, you know, as an IT person or as a techie, like a real software developer, staying in one place is very hard, because the projects are so interesting. Once your project is done, and you can apply your mind and your brain to some other interesting project, you're not going to stick around. But I think sticking around with this long project was really a labor of hate and love, I think. So it was yeah, I mean, you can see this gray. I mean, obviously I can show you a picture of 2003. But alhamdulillah, I mean, I made it out alive on the other side, I think, from an IT point of view.
Yeah, what is your biggest lesson in entrepreneurship the past 20 years?
I think, you know, like somebody told me the other day when we started this new venture, and it's a partner of mine in Kenya that's going to launch the same app in Kenya. He told me, and he's like an old friend of mine. He did a lot of work with me. He was actually in Joburg, and he's actually, he's not South African, but he told me, we don't know what's going to work and where it's going to work. So I think for me, a massive lesson is that you need to start. If you don't start, you know, because you don't know what's going to work. You know, only Allah knows what's going to work. So there is no guarantee of anything working. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what funding you have. There's just no guarantee. So biggest lesson for me is, if I knew then what I know now, I don't know whether I would have started my own business, but the journey is certainly quite a different journey. So I think, yeah, start. That's probably my biggest lesson.
And you, Afzal, your biggest lesson in the corporate environment, spending over 15 years in it?
There's so many different lessons. I mean, I think the one thing has always been the fact that in a corporate environment, there's an implicit hierarchy in terms of how things get done. And I think the biggest part is getting a firm grasp of how that hierarchy works. And if you don't, then you're going to be very frustrated in that environment. One of the advantages of corporate is that it's so large, and generally you can achieve a lot. And that same advantage is generally its biggest weakness, because there's so much controls and governances in place. And I think if you want to build a successful career in corporates, whether that be a new startup, something that's small, or whether it be a large corporate, you know, a large financial services company or a large retailer, you need to understand that you have to influence individuals, and you always form part of a team, and you need to bear that in mind in how you engage with others. Because if you don't do that, I mean, you're not going to be successful. You're not going to get things done. I think for me, that's been the biggest one, is that you need to appreciate the fact that you're not going to do things on your own, and you need to be willing to influence and be willing to I don't want to use the word play the game, but you need to understand that some of the rules are there and you're going to have to adhere to them.
For sure. Just one last question, Ali, from your side. What is your biggest regret? What is your, or maybe what is your biggest failure? I mean, especially as an entrepreneur, you only make a lot of failures.
I think there's like one thing. I mean, I always kind of I don't regret it. But
How much money did you lose, basically?
Well, I think money. I mean, one thing about money, and I mean, is that once again, it's like when you make an investment, right? When you see the investment go down, do you pull all the money out of the investment immediately, or do you wait it out?
Wait.
And I think the business is exactly the same. But I think, sure, regret. I don't really. I'm not a person who believes in regret, but there's something that always kind of niggled at me, and Allah knows best. Allah protected me, so I'm actually content how it turned out. And when I was like, when we just started, I had a partner, and he believed that no, we needed to have a subscription to Forbes magazine. So we had a subscription to Forbes magazine back in the late 90s. So every month this magazine comes, and it was exceptionally expensive, but we invested in that, right? So I always read through the magazine, and I thought, but when I read the magazine, I was never happy at the end of it. I was like, wow, are we doing enough? Look at these businesses, look at what they're doing. So the one thing that I always wanted to do, damn, I'm not actually publicly disclosing it, but so this was this thing that I needed to be in Silicon Valley, right? And what could I have done there, But yeah, but I mean, I was chatting to my wife the other day, and I was telling her, Allah protected me. I must be so grateful, because I don't know, maybe my mind was maybe very weak at that point in my life, that if I was there, I don't know what could have happened. So in that way, I think Allah did protect me. So, because, like at that stage in your career, you're like so focused that maybe your iman and your deen is maybe not first priority or high priority in your life. So I'm content, but yeah, so maybe through this new venture, we may end up.
Maybe.
Right?
Yeah, so let's talk about this new venture. Like how was the idea born? Yeah, let's start with that. How do you get the concept?
So I think, yeah, let me start. Basically, we did this 9 years ago. We built a solution around the same concept. So it was on the older technology of web, web technology. I mean, obviously the younger guys was not going to know that, but it was a very old, slow technology. And essentially what we did at the time is we researched it quite a bit, and there was even a company out in the Netherlands that developed a mechanism where they give free SIM cards to youth between 13 and 21. And what they do then is they give them airtime every month, and they load the airtime on the SIM card, and then for that, they then stream ads to them every month, right? But they give them airtime and data. That time data wasn't such a big thing, but airtime, yeah? So myself and another guy actually thought independently of this idea, and we were on LinkedIn, and somehow we made a comment, and then it sparked this whole project. It's like, okay, now we're going to go forward. So we built it. We ran it for about a year and a half. So we had had some 1-2 permanent staff on it, but I was very busy, so I parked the project because we kind of got over 10,000 users, and then we decided, look, we're going to park it because there was 3 partners, and everyone couldn't give full-time attention, or none of us could give full-time attention. So we parked it, and I decided now when I was like more freer that I needed to get back into IT, and I wanted to create, inshallah, a substantial company, hire people, grow the business, and use it as a foundation to do good things. So, and that's where I approached Afzal and said, Afzal, are you keen to do this? And so the idea was there. Obviously, we fine-tuned the idea. I mean, it was Afzal's newer concepts that we brought in, etc. But that's kind of it started. So it's definitely not our first stab at it. I would say we experimented about 10 years ago, and this is a lot of other knowledge as well, that came with us to where we're at now. So it's definitely not a spur of the moment kind of project, yeah.
Afzal, so what is especially to the viewers and the listeners, what is ADWI? Explain to us.
So what we've tried to do is we've looked at the current trends that you find. So you find that a lot of individuals out there. I mean, you mentioned, for example, some of social medias like your Facebook and your Instagram, as well as your Google. You've got a lot of people that are using these services. And a core part of using these services is that a lot of it is free. And you don't pay for Google or for any of these other social media ones, but the actual means of exchange is your data. So if you look at it, you are providing and sharing a lot of your information, and in return, you're getting access to these services. And when we look at the digital economy, and you look at, for example, where different countries are going, you'll see that there's definitely the data is something that you can monetize. And what we've tried to do with ADWI is a first iteration or first stab at how you can monetize your data. So that's the fundamental premise behind it. And what we've then done is, as a layer on top of that, is we've developed the idea of trying to break away some of the existing channels in terms of how you go about doing your marketing or doing your advertising spend. And if I were to look at it a very simple line, on ADWI, it's a place where you can come and you can watch ads, and in return, you can gain rewards. And you can use that rewards to buy airtime, or you can cash out that rewards in actual real money. So that is fundamentally the platform that we built. And the means of exchange, there is your time and your data, and in return, you will get paid for that. Unlike these other platforms like a Google or Facebook, where you don't get paid for your data per se.
Okay. So yeah, look, I'm just putting myself in. So basically, if, like, for example, if I go on Facebook and Instagram, basically I'm the product, if you think of it, because you know, it's all about attention. You know, you're giving attention to someone. So when someone comes to your app, the intention is to earn money. Am I right? So for me as a user, because you know, you have my data, and so I download the app, and then I start watching ads. Am I right? So that's basically the concept. And then you guys reward me based on what ads I watched. And so how does it work? Do I get like a $1 an ad, or how do you work that out? Ali?
So, look, so I think fundamentally, if you think about your time, you think of your attention. So we're actually converting your attention into an asset.
Yes.
Which is something that I don't think a lot of people have thought about. So this is not a brand new idea, by the way, but they haven't thought of it like that. So if you think you're on Facebook or on Instagram, there's a feed, they steal your attention, right?
Yes.
Your attention gets stolen, but it's not a completed interaction. So you see like a snippet and then you scroll, all right? Whereas with ADWI, you have to watch the whole video. You have to engage everything for that minute or the 2 minutes that's provided to you. So the effect that you're giving your attention means that we pay you for your attention. So that's essentially the asset that or the product that we're actually giving, or that we're providing the advertiser, and the advertiser obviously buys the attention from the user. So that's essentially the mechanism that we built. Yeah. So in terms of the amount can be based on the product. So if we're selling a fast-moving consumer good item, let's say we're selling a food item or cool drink or whatever, marketing that, we want to start at R1 per minute of attention, right? But if you're selling a higher value item, let's say you're selling a garment or a high-end garment, or even a medium-end garment, or a vehicle, or electronic gadget, we're certainly going to see a higher incentives being paid, because if you think about marketing a phone in a certain demographic, in a certain age group, in a certain LSM, we will be able to do that. So for that, if you're targeting 200 people in Upper Claremont, to pay somebody 10 Rand, it's certainly not going to be a problem, because the campaign is only going to be worth 2,000 Rand. Yeah.
Okay, I understand. And then, so as an advertiser, so I would give you a sort of a same like Facebook. I would give you a budget, say like 100 Rand, to target 1,000 people, and you guys, and obviously give you a specific target demographic, age group, etc., etc. And then you guys allocate the ad and make sure that my ad goes in front of that specific demographics eyes, so to say. Is
Yep.
that right? Okay, that's interesting. So how's it been so far? I mean, you guys only launched a couple of days ago. How's it going?
So it's been quite an interesting journey. We've signed up quite a lot of users thus far, a lot more than I anticipated, to be honest with you. I think from an awareness point of view, we've been quite successful. We've got a lot of people on the platform and using the platform. We've also got a few advertisers on the platform already. I think it's one of those things, typically when you're in a platform, you've got to manage the supply and the demand. And we've been able now to get a lot of users onto the platform, which means we've got a lot of attention or ability or potential for attention. And now we've got to get a lot more of the advertisers onto the platform so that we can obviously match that demand onto the actual supply side. I think we've built from a capability point of view. We've got all the parts that are there. And we are looking at advertisers to come on board onto the platform. We've got a few of them already, and we're always willing to get a lot more on in terms of partnerships. So I think it's gone well. I mean, typically in a go live, you're hoping and praying that nothing breaks, that you know that you've got enough. I mean, nowadays with everything being on the cloud, you don't necessarily have the challenge where you don't have enough CPU or enough RAM. So we never had any of those challenges per se. And now it's just a matter of how do we scale the business going forward? How do we ensure that we get a lot more users on board, and how do we get a lot more advertisers on board? So I think it's been an interesting few days. But as Ali will tell you, we're always looking forward and saying what more can we do and what more can we do better.
So you mentioned scaling. In terms of scaling, so are you guys only focused sort of on the Western Cape or South Africa? You also, Ali also mentioned your partner in somewhere in Africa. Like what are your goals? What are the plans going forward?
So what we're doing is we're launching in fact, in this, we're also launching in Eastern Europe, in a country in Eastern Europe called Georgia. So we've got our pre-launch that we've done in this week as well, our pre-registration. So that started in this week as well. That's a separate website with a separate URL and a separate backend engine as well. And in Kenya, we're looking at also launching in this year, probably the next 3 months. So we're just trying to get some of the learnings bedded down in South Africa, and then obviously part that towards use the same learnings in those regions as well. So like the my friend says in Kenya, he says that we don't know which country is going to work, but I think we have a 2 to 3 year runway in terms of working on the project. So I think it's not something that we have a short-term view on, because we're changing a lot of the mechanics of how advertising is done. So essentially, any business could essentially use our platform once we have a lot of users. So because we have such a micro-targeted way of doing advertising, we could even serve somebody selling biryani in Highlands or kusistas in Lansdowne, So it really kind of talks to the small business a lot, because the fact that you can micro-target at a micro budget. And the nice thing there is that, like in our current time, we have a lot of that need where there's small businesses that want to run a campaign for a day. But with Facebook, the click-through cost is like 5 to 10 Rand, So for somebody running a product, a low-value product, a 5 Rand campaign doesn't make sense, because he's only interested to target people in a 1 or 2 kilometer radius. So I think, that's kind of the plan.
So I'm just thinking aloud here. So who would be your avatar, in a sense, like who would be your perfect person that will download the app? Because I'm thinking I wouldn't. For me, I'm too busy. I wouldn't have a chance to look at ads, right? But who would be the perfect person or profile to download your app? Is someone like that needs money, or someone that's got enough time on their hands? I'm just maybe just help me there, Afzal.
So Khalil, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? So we're looking at individuals who have time on their hands, who have access to data, and typically looking at somebody who's probably a student, somebody who's probably in that age group of maybe 13, 14 upwards. But then you're also looking at other individuals. You might, I mean, the use case that we're portraying at the moment is predominantly one where somebody wants to view an ad. But remember, as time goes on, the platform will have a lot of content on it. And one of the use cases that we are exploring, which is something we will experiment with, is to say, if you, for example, Khalil, want to buy a new drill, let's assume you're a DIY kind of guy. Why should you go on to, okay, so you're not, so I'll find that my avatar was a DIY guy and he wants to buy a new drill and is looking at the various options. Why should he go onto Google and do a search on there and not get paid? Whereas he could come onto our platform and do a search and get paid.
Yes.
So, I mean, there's various use cases that we are looking to experiment with. And I think that for now, if you look at in terms of where the business is, in terms of what we're targeting, it's predominantly the one who has a lot of time and access to data. But that'll definitely change over time.
Interesting. Any comments?
On that question, obviously we old people, right? We like very old. Anything over
that'd be
everything. Everyone must remember you millennial. I'm a generation. After Generation X, right?
X, yeah.
So the reality is, a 16-year-old think anyone over 30 is old, right? So essentially, if you look at TikTok, I mean, if I'm going to go on TikTok or you, we're both going to be weird. Okay, so that's out of the question. And the same with this platform. If you think of youngsters going on this platform, that's a completely different behavior. However, like Afzal is saying, obviously once you reach critical mass, it becomes, and we're going to be never first adopters. I mean, if we look at our test group that we had, we had about 10 people or 8 people under 20, and they digital natives. They tell us what's their preferences. The other people, they all skirt around, what's your favorite this, favorite that. And it's kind of amusing in the database. If you look at how they put it in, and if you look at the digital natives, they just fill everything. Well, they just fill everything in, right? So it's very interesting. So I mean, if you give this to your kid, I mean, like I say, no, but everyone uses it. But here's another use case. I mean, Khalil. So what we're looking at as well is obviously, if you look at like the type of people that's involved in this initiative, we obviously want to improve the credibility of the app a lot, right? So one of the things that we will be implementing in our next version is the ability to donate money from the wallet. So we talk with partners like reputable organizations in our community and countrywide. So you'd be able to go into the wallet, right? Watch an ad. I mean, imagine Khalil watches an ad who never has time, and he made some money from watching ads, and he gives 20 rand to the gifts. Yeah. So I mean, I think you'll do that, or maybe you'll do that, right?
Yeah, possible.
So we're looking at use cases to get people on board. Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds exciting. So how's the journey been? I mean, like, how long did it take for you guys to develop the platform? And tell us about that. Ali?
So we started last year. I think we started about a year ago.
Okay.
I think COVID gave us put us a bit on the back foot in terms of our launch, and some other delays like a submission to the Apple App Store, etc. I mean, they also kind of messed us around a bit, to be honest. Hopefully they don't take negatively to that comment online, but basically that caused delays for us. Yeah. So I think it's about a year. So I mean, we went through a lot of discussions around mechanisms in the app, because I mean the app's got some quite complex backing kind of concepts that we implemented. And obviously, being computer scientists, we make things sometimes very complicated. Hopefully it's all hidden. That's very important. So it took a bit of time, and obviously we went through the use like a user test period, quite extensive amount of user testing and feedback and improvement, and obviously fine-tuning like the backing panel, the admin interface as well, how to place ads, the campaign management, and so on. Yeah. So it took about a year to get to this point.
Mm. So you mentioned database and data, and so how serious do you guys take the, you know, people obviously be playing with, not playing, but you should value people's data and privacy and this whole puppy thing. So how do you guys handle that?
So I mean, if I look at it from a technical point of view, there's no stone that's left unturned in terms of how we are securing the data. So it's been housed on an AWS database instance, sitting in a EU region, which is GDPR compliant. And then in terms of security on the platform as well, I mean, I'm not going to go into too much technical details, but security is definitely top of mind. And I mean, as you've mentioned, you know, the idea here is not to exploit the data. The idea is to say that you're sharing data with us that you're comfortable sharing. So if you were to log into the app and sign up, and you'd start populating in terms of your own personal preferences, you choose what you get to share. And whatever you don't share, we don't know. That's the principle that we apply. And then even when we start looking at how we do the targeting in terms of the ads, so as an advertiser, when you come onto the platform, at no point do you see the individual. All of that is obfuscated, and we group the data together. So as an advertiser, you're putting in certain parameters, and you're going to get a set of information back. You're not going to get the individual. So you're not going to see that Khalil is on the platform, and Khalil, for example, likes computers, or Khalil likes his Bose headphones, or whatever it might be. You're going to see that there's a group of individuals in a particular demographic that has that preference. And that's a key principle for us going forward, is that we're constantly trying to figure out a way to match an advertiser to the targeted audience. And similarly, we're trying to ensure that the individual's preferences remain in their own control. But finding the balance that the information that we push into them is something that they're interested in watching, and not necessarily something that they would deem as spam. So it's an interesting conundrum that we need to solve, and I think it's one of the things that will continue to evolve going forward.
Yeah. So, so I'm thinking, so let's say, I mean, you mentioned 13-year-olds upwards. So let's say I'm 13 years old. So do you guys screen every ad, make sure that, you know, the 13-year-old is watching appropriate ads? Yeah, I'm just thinking how do you manage that?
Actually, a 16-year-old. So
Oh,
you need to be
okay.
16 before you can
16.
use that. So obviously, yeah.
So yeah, even 16-year-old. I mean, yeah. So I guess 16-year-old is 16-year-old an adult.
Yeah, age of consent. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay. Interesting.
But I think obviously from an ethics point of view, I mean, like
I'm just thinking from that perspective.
On a product sheet, obviously, we do indicate, we obviously not going to entertain like illicit kind of advertising. So I mean, somebody's actually sent me a casino ad, so I said, look, we're not going to do any gambling, kind of marketing. So it's not really the area that we want to go into. So we don't allow it upfront. And I think it's very important for me where I'm at personally in my life that that we actually have a narrative that is very responsible and that is ethical. Because if we can't maintain that, then I think our whole our principles are compromised.
Yeah, very important. So how do people?
Go
for it.
Sorry, just to add what Ali is saying. I mean, I think that's one of the common things between the two of us. And while we might have different approaches to various things, the way in which we want to manage the business and type of people we want to be involved in it, I mean, we're quite clear on that. And that includes who we partner with in terms of our advertisers. I mean, as Ali has mentioned, the ethics thing is quite important to us. And we both, from a personal point of view, we're quite clear that, we definitely want to look at a business that is sustainable and a business that can make a difference. And that's been the one thing that's attracted both myself and Ali to keep this thing going.
For sure. How has it been working together? I mean, when you start a business, choosing the right partner is very important. How has it been, Ali, working with Afzal and Afzal? How has it been? Can you be honest here?
Computer scientists are hard people to work together because obviously, they want perfect products. Yeah, so product detail and testing and what about this and what about that. So sometimes you feel like this product is never going to get done because the level of perfection from opposite personalities, I would say opposite from me to him and him to me. So I think it's not always complementary. It's like a super burden because you actually just want to make the product perfect all the time. But I think I'm a little older, so I think I'm a little bit mature in terms of wanting to kind of get the thing to a point where it's done. And then I think it's good to have, it's good to have attention to detail that Afzal brings, that eye to detail that I sometimes, sometimes I'm a bit lax about now, so maybe because as you get older, you get more mellow or something like that. I don't know. But I'm fine. I've worked with a lot of people, and I think I delegate at this point in my life. I delegate generously.
Yeah.
I mean, from my side, Ali definitely pulls rank a lot of the times. Now, just kidding. I think the one thing for me that I found very refreshing, and I'm actually quite grateful that you asked that question, is the fact that a lot of the conversations, like Ali's mentioned, we have very complex conversations and very like we try and go through all the different what if scenarios. But the refreshing thing has actually been that I don't have to explain myself more than once, because from one computer scientist to another, we catch it very quickly. And then, I mean, the second thing that Ali's mentioned as well, and I just want to add into it, I think both of us have a mindset where we're quite perfectionist. And we want things to be absolutely, we've thought it through, we've designed it, and what we've built must be exactly what we've designed. But I think what we've learned and what we've learned from each other is that it's fine if it's not perfect, on the first iteration or on the second iteration. We need to get it out, we need to ship it. And we need to, I mean, I'm not saying we're not, but the lesson for me has been that, we've got to be very much more user-centered. And one of the key things there is that the quicker we get it out, the quicker we get the feedback, the quicker we're able to make the product even better than what it is today. And then Ali brings that to the table, like you said, we're quite demanding on each other. We know what we need to do. We know we need to deliver it. And excuses don't cut it. We've got to get it done. I mean, COVID-19 has come. It's here to stay. We can hide behind it for 1 or 2 days, but then you've got to pull your big boy pants up and you got to get to it. You got to get it done.
100%. So for the viewers there and the listeners, how do people join the community or download the app? Ali?
So I think the best place to obviously get hold of the app is to go to the website, www.adwii.com. And I mean, there's a download link. Unfortunately, we don't have Apple version at this stage. We're looking at a solution by September as an alternate, but we have the Android version of the app that's downloadable in the Play Store. And they will need a reference code, which is on the front page of the website.
Okay.
I think obviously, Afzal, I'm not sure if we're going to have time for him to show you the app.
Yeah. Well, let's do it. I mean, we have 10 minutes left. So, Afzal, if you can, if it's possible.
Okay, let me see. Let's see how we're going to do that. I'll stop the video first.
Yeah.
Okay, Khalil, you're going to have to allow me to share. Apparently, it says disabled sharing.
Okay, it's interesting. Now I'll make you a host. Let's see how that works.
Okay. Okay, share my screen.
Okay, perfect. You can see.
Cool. So when you sign up, when you log into the app, the first thing that you'll get prompted to is, as we've mentioned, it's the profile information. And what we're trying to do at this point is to get a better understanding of what you like and what you don't like. So obviously, as you can see here, you can add in certain information around your shopping preferences, where do you like to shop, online, physical. And we've got about 80 different questions that you can see we've categorized quite neatly. We asked you a question, for example, about education. Where have you studied, what type of studying you've done, and when was the last time you graduated, and so on and so forth. And all of that information influences the type of content that you will get. I mean, this is very much a demo account that I'm showing you right here. Sorry.
So you don't have 915 Rand?
Unfortunately, I don't. I'm struggling to
Email.
get. Let me just figure. Cool. So what happens then is this is actually the ads inbox. So you'll see over here there are ads that is available for you to watch, and you'll press the video and it'll watch it. I'm not going to take you through that now. And after you've watched an ad, it goes into the viewed ads box, which is over here. And based on, as Ali was saying, when you're watching an ad, halfway through the ad, it'll stop. And at that point, it'll give you a particular code. And once you've watched the full ad, you'll then enter in that code. And that is to ensure that we've got your attention for the full video.
Nice.
Subsequent to that, depending on the type of ad that you've run, and you can see here, there's money that's come in. Of course, this is all fictitious. So you've got in, for example, 50 cents. And then once you've accumulated sufficient funds, as the 915 demonstrates, you can then do a redemption. So at the redemption point, you can either redeem money in terms of an airtime voucher. We've called it the recharge coupon. So you can select which network you want to go on. We've limited at the moment to 10 Rand. Alternatively, you can also do a bank withdrawal. So you can put in an amount depending on your funds. We've got a minimum there in that moment for just to ensure that it's easier for us to manage that. The other part that Ali's mentioned as well is we've got a referral network that we've set up. Unfortunately, this account doesn't have that detailed. But as you keep on inviting individuals with your actual referral code, all of them will appear on the screen. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to build up a network of individuals that also contribute to your wallet. So as you can see over there, this user is a level 1, and that level 1 allows him to add other individuals into their network. So as you can see, the app it's in my view, it's quite usable. Between Ali and myself, we spend time, getting the user interface to a point where we think it's quite easy for people to put in information. But we always believe we can improve it. So individuals are more than willing to share the input on that. But we've built something that is quite easy. It's quite simple. I mean, the download I think is like 30 odd meg. So in the bigger scheme of things, the app is not that big, and the app does quite a lot from a feature point of view. And it works on I think the later versions of Android. I think it's Android 6 and onwards. So we've tried to target as many users as we can in terms of the devices as well as the operating system. So the app is, I mean, it's quite straightforward. As we mentioned over here, this is a typical help feature in terms of how you want to contact us. And all of that is integrated into the app. And the same app that you find here, you potentially would have found on the Apple side as well. But as Ali has mentioned, we are looking at alternative ways to help those individuals get on the platform as well going forward.
Sounds good. Looks good. I like it. Actually, can see the benefit, especially for students. You're right. Earn a bit of pocket money here and there. And you guys have like a religion profile. It would be interesting if I can post some accidental Muslims ads.
So yeah, so I think the profile that we actually don't ask what race you are or what religion you are. Very interesting. Afterwards, I thought about it and I thought, but it's actually okay, it's fine. You know why? Because the point of the app is actually not to be intrusive in a cultural way. And I think that's really important. So I mean, even like some people were saying they're concerned about the fact that we're asking ID numbers and bank account details. Yes. Those things are actually not compulsory when you sign up. Those are all optional fields. And over time, like initially you need to put 50% of your profile parameters in, but there's enough parameters that can give you 50%, that you can actually skirt around the personal, like really personal information. And obviously once you trust us, once you've got like a few airtime coupons and now you're going to trust us, you can say, you know what, I'm going to wait for my $100 and then I want cash. Then you're going to unfortunately have to give us your bank details and your ID number, because we need to be able to figure you in some way, by paying you, because we can track the transaction. So I think, yeah, I mean, there's those things here that definitely gives you the protection, and also gives you incentive.
Yeah, interesting. I love it. Thanks, guys, for your hard work on this one. Look, we only have a couple of minutes left. You guys have any last words? Afzal, Ali, any last words to our listeners, our viewers, besides out of the app?
I think I'll leave that. That'll be Ali's last line in closing. I think we're just grateful for this opportunity, Khalil, to have this moment to talk about our story and talk about our journey. And we hope that, through people listening to this conversation, that we've influenced others to maybe pursue their dream, to make them realize that, there's so much opportunities out there with the technology that is available. And where there's this doom that surrounds us, we should look at the positives, which is that technologies like AWS, Microsoft Azure, all of them that are out there, if we can just grasp it and use it, we can definitely build stuff that will make our lives a lot easier.
Definitely, definitely. Ali?
Yes, I think my last words is like, like a lot of people, some people like approach me and said, wow, this is like such a crazy thing. How can we actually, how is it possible to pay people? So I said, advertisers are paying Facebooks at the moment. All that we're doing is we're channeling that money to you, right? That's what we're doing. We're doing that. So I think we're not doing something, we're doing something, it's bold in one way, because I mean, we kind of saying we're going to give people money. But essentially what we're doing is we're channeling money. So I think it's doable. It's going to take a bit of time. Obviously, I mean, good things don't happen overnight. But we need critical mass, right? So that's where users come in. And obviously with the affiliate mechanism that we have in, it's really a cool affiliate mechanism. Even if accidental Muslims join it, whoever they refer, on the second and third level, they'll get 5% of whatever the incentives are. So essentially, somebody like an organization like Accidental Muslims, if you have 5,000 people in your tree that you referred, I mean, that's for every time they're viewing an ad, that's 5 cents times 5,000, that's going to come to Accidental Muslims. So there is a really neat, I mean, I don't want to kind of give myself accolades, but we spent a huge amount of time with the affiliate mechanism, and it rolls up very nicely now that we got users. We can actually see that it's actually rolling up. So every time somebody like watches a R1 ad, an accidental Muslim will get 5 cents. I mean, check how cool that is. I mean, let's say looking at a school, that's kind of revenue streams that they can create.
Yeah, for sure.
So we want to encourage people to download the app, because basically by them downloading it first or early, they can invite other people and they can create revenue streams for themselves.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys. Look, really appreciate it, especially this time of the evening. It's now 9:10. Guys probably tired. But I know Afzal's, always working at night, seeing that he's doing this part time, grinding it out. But yeah, thanks a lot for the opportunity to come on board and join the community, the AIM community, and I wish you all the success. Inshallah.
I mean, thank you.
Thanks, Ali. Thanks, Afzal. Appreciate it.
Assalamu alaikum.